In Part 1, we saw that the traditional U.S. political spectrum, based on equality versus control, was not only flawed, but divisive. Yet, if the spectrum doesn't work, how do we fix it? The Political Spectrum Part 2, Fixing the Spectrum. Welcome to Into the Desert, exploring the wilderness of ideas. Don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons. And if you want to support our channel and our mission of encouraging discussion, not division, please join us on Patreon. The link is in the description. In the Political Spectrum Part 1, we looked at a common U.S. political spectrum that spanned between the far left, focusing on equality, and the far right, focusing on control. We saw that not only did the spectrum not match the U.S. political landscape, but it had a number of errors, was divisive, and thus counterproductive to an effective democracy. If you haven't seen Part 1, we highly recommend checking it out first and then coming back to this video. The link is in the description. If the common political spectrum is so broken, how do we fix it? This question has no easy answer. The core problem is that the more accurate the depiction, the less useful it is in discussions. Depictions involving more than a one-dimensional left-right spectrum may be more accurate, but are hardly practical in most real-world political discussions. Outside of academia, political discussions in the U.S. occur on a left-right spectrum, and that is unlikely to change. Here, we will try to change the spectrum to something that is, 1, more accurate, and 2, less demonizing. The first step is to drop the groups that don't have any appreciable impact on U.S. politics. This would remove communism, authoritarianism, and fascism. However applicable to discussions about world or historical politics, these groups play an insignificant role in modern U.S. politics, except as negative terms used when attacking opponents. Socialism stays because, while a small minority, there are a significant number of socialists, and even some candidates and elected officials who call themselves socialists. Next, we need to add those groups that play a notable role in U.S. politics that were left out: progressives, moderates, and libertarians. We saw that the equity versus control spectrum didn't make sense. So what spectrum would? While a concern for equality accurately describes the left, a desire for control is found across the spectrum. In addition, control gives a negative connotation to the right as opposed to the more positive value, equality. A better counterbalance to equality would be liberty. While both liberty and equality are positive values, they are also mutually exclusive. The more you have of one, the less you have of the other. To see this, consider economic equality. Assume for a moment that one could wave a wand and, in an instant, everyone had exactly the same amount of money and property. That everyone is, at that moment, economically equal. What would happen? Some would save it. Some would spend it. Some would invest it. And some would gamble it and win. Others would lose. In short, before long, economic equality would disappear. As time went on, the inequality would grow. The only way to prevent this inequality would be to have laws against any activity that could lead to inequality. In short, to restrict liberty. A political spectrum based on equality versus liberty makes much more sense. Starting on the left, equality is valued strongly over liberty. As you move to the right, concerns for equality reduces while concerns about liberty grows. By the time you reach the right, liberty is strongly valued over equality. This also lines up nicely with the country's real-life political situation. At the far left are the socialists who push the hardest for equality. As you move towards the center, you come to progressives. and then liberals with increasing emphasis on liberty at the expense of equality. Moderates in the center would then value equality and liberty equally, striking a balance between these ideas. As you then move to the right half of the spectrum, you have conservatives, who value liberty more than equality, and finally libertarians, who push the hardest for liberty. Such a spectrum would also work for secondary characteristics. For example, equality requires the government to enforce it at the expense of liberty. Thus, it is unsurprising that the left generally wants a larger, more centralized government, while the right wants a smaller, more decentralized one. Such a spectrum also meets the second goal, in that it does not require one to demonize those on the other side. Both equality and liberty are positive values. Most would agree that in a perfect world we would want both. Yet they are mutually exclusive. Different people can and do have different views as to their relative value, without being in some fashion bad. Such a spectrum also leads to a better understanding of the two parties, not as monoliths, but as coalitions of various groups. The Democratic Party consists of some socialists, progressives, liberals, and more left-leaning moderates. More right-leaning moderates, along with conservatives and libertarians, make up the Republicans. It is true that not everyone fits into this two-party structure. On the far left, there are socialists and others who form other parties. Likewise, on the right, there are many libertarian and others who are not Republican and have also formed other parties. Yet, these other parties are small and insignificant at the national level. They play little, if any, significant role in elections, except occasionally as a possible spoiler. But even that is unclear, as it assumes those who vote for a third-party candidate would have voted for the two-party candidate closest to them. Yet there is also the possible option of not voting at all. Still, if one wanted to include them, they could be added to the far left or far right. There remains a third group, which is of significant size to have an impact: the independents. These are people who, for a variety of reasons, are not part of any political party. While they can be found throughout the political spectrum, many are moderates who could vote for either party depending on the candidates running. While the equality versus liberty political spectrum is not perfect, it is far superior than equality versus control. It gives a better understanding of the real-world political differences without resorting to the demonization that is, unfortunately, so common. Next time, we will look at some objections that have been raised. So what do you think? Do you agree that an equality versus liberty spectrum makes more sense? Do you disagree? And if so, why? Perhaps your objections will make it into part 3. We do read the comments and often post replies. If you made it this far, consider watching one of our other videos and supporting our channel on Patreon. Thank you for watching Into the Desert, exploring the wilderness of ideas.